I stood in my wedding dress, surrounded by friends but no family, staring at my phone with the final text from my mother. We can't support this display of selfishness. My parents chose to attend my cousin's college graduation instead of their own daughter's wedding. That crushing moment when I realized they really weren't coming still haunts me. Then my phone buzzed again. Rachel's smug voice message playing on speaker. Maybe this will teach you about family priorities. Before I dive into my story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like button if you've ever dealt with family drama, and subscribe to join our community of survivors and thrivers. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Growing up as Jessica Carter meant living in the perpetual shadow of my perfect older sister, Rachel. From the moment I could understand family dynamics, it was clear who the favorite was. Rachel was 4 years older, and those 4 years might as well have been 40 in terms of the pedestal my parents placed her on. Our family looked normal from the outside. My father, Michael, worked as an accountant. My mother, Diana, taught elementary school, and we lived in a comfortable suburban home in Connecticut. But inside those walls, there was a clear hierarchy. Rachel at the top, my parents just below, and me somewhere near the basement. Rachel was the valedictorian of her high school class. Her graduation speech made my mother cry with pride. When my graduation came around 4 years later, my solid 3.8 gigapascals and position as editor of the school newspaper was met with, "That's nice, honey. Rachel had a 4, you know." I knew. Of course I knew. I'd heard about Rachel's 4 approximately 5,000 times. Our living room was basically a shrine to Rachel's achievements. Trophies, certificates, newspaper clippings about her academic scholarships. My art contest wins, and marketing competition certificates were relegated to a small corner of the family room, if they were displayed at all. "Your sister just applies herself more," my father would say whenever I questioned the disparity in attention. "When you learn to be more disciplined like Rachel, you'll see the same results." But I wasn't Rachel. I was creative, outspoken, and drawn to bold ideas. Where she was methodical and cautious, I was innovative and willing to take risks. These traits would later serve me well in my marketing career, but in our household they were seen as flaws rather than strengths. The first major betrayal came during my senior year of high school. I'd been promised my college fund would cover my education at the state university, where I'd been accepted to study marketing. 2 months before enrollment, I overheard my parents discussing finances in the kitchen. "Jessica will understand," my mother said. "Rachel's medical school acceptance is once in a lifetime. The extra money from Jessica's fund will cover what the scholarship doesn't." I confronted them that night, devastated. My father looked annoyed at being challenged. "Rachel earned a partial scholarship to medical school," he explained as if talking to a child. "But it's expensive, and her education is an investment. You can take out loans for your marketing degree." He said marketing the way someone might say underwater basket weaving. That night changed everything. I realized if I wanted anything in life, I would have to get it myself. No one was going to champion me the way my parents championed Rachel. So I did what I had to do. I worked 2 jobs through college, took out minimal loans, and graduated with honors. I landed an entry-level position at a respected marketing firm in Boston and worked my way up through determination and creative thinking. By 29, I was the creative director at my firm, managing a team of 12 and handling several major accounts. I'd moved past the need for my parents' approval, or so I thought. I met Andrew Thompson at a marketing conference in San Francisco 3 years ago. He was presenting about software solutions for creative teams, and I was immediately drawn to his intelligence and kindness. We started talking at the networking event afterward, and by the end of the night, we'd made plans to meet for coffee the next morning. Andrew came from a different kind of family than mine. His parents, Robert and Catherine Thompson, had built a successful software company together and sold it for a substantial sum when Andrew was in college. But despite their wealth, they remained grounded, supportive, and genuinely interested in their children's happiness rather than just their achievements. The contrast between our families became clearer the more serious our relationship grew. While my parents still compared every accomplishment to Rachel's, Andrew's parents celebrated each of his milestones and supported his decisions without condition. Meanwhile, Rachel had married James, a successful cardiologist she met in medical school, in what my parents called the perfect wedding. It was modest by choice, though my parents could have afforded more, held in our family church with a reception at the local country club. Rachel wore our grandmother's restored wedding dress, used wildflowers for decorations, and limited the guest list to 100 people. Rachel understood the value of tradition and restraint, my mother would say whenever weddings came up in conversation. Her wedding was about family, not showing off. What they failed to mention was that Rachel's modest wedding still cost them nearly $30,000, something I would discover much later. But in their eyes, every penny spent on Rachel was an investment, while anything spent on me was an indulgence. By the time Andrew proposed, I'd built a life I was proud of, with or without my family's approval. But some part of me still hoped that my wedding might be the moment they finally saw me as an equal to my sister. I couldn't have been more wrong. Andrew proposed on a perfect California evening as the sun set over Pfeiffer Beach. We'd been dating for 2 years, and though we'd discussed marriage, he still managed to surprise me. He'd arranged for us to have the purple sand beach almost entirely to ourselves, and as the sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink, he got down on one knee. "Jessica, you're the most incredible woman I've ever known," he said, pulling out a vintage-style emerald ring that he knew I'd prefer over a traditional diamond. "Your creativity, your passion, your resilience, everything about you amazes me. Will you marry me?" I said yes through tears of joy, and we celebrated with champagne he'd hidden in a cooler behind some rocks. That night, I felt completely, unreservedly happy. My friends were ecstatic when I shared the news. My best friend Lisa screamed so loudly over the phone that I had to hold the receiver away from my ear. My work friends threw an impromptu celebration lunch the next day, with my boss even joining in with a toast to my happiness. Then came telling my family. I called my parents from Andrew's apartment, putting them on speakerphone so he could be part of the announcement. "Mom, Dad, I have amazing news," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "Andrew proposed last night, and I said yes." The silence that followed lasted just a beat too long. "Oh," my mother finally said, "Congratulations, honey. That's nice." My father cleared his throat. "Yes, congratulations to both of you. Andrew, you're taking on quite a responsibility." Andrew squeezed my hand as my smile faltered. I'd known better than to expect unbridled enthusiasm, but their tepid response still stung. When Rachel called about her engagement, "You two were over the moon," I couldn't help saying. "You opened champagne and called the whole family before she even finished telling you." "That was different," my mother said dismissively. Rachel and James had dated for 4 years, and they had established careers. It just felt more settled. Andrew's parents, by contrast, were overjoyed. Catherine called daily with wedding magazine recommendations, and Robert immediately offered to help financially to make sure you two have the wedding you want, not the wedding you think you can afford. Rachel's reaction came via text. "Congrats, sis. Are you sure you're ready for marriage? No rush if you're not 100% certain. Just looking out for you." I deleted the message without responding. Andrew and I began planning our dream wedding, an elegant affair at a beautiful vineyard in Sonoma that we'd visited and fallen in love with. We envisioned 150 guests, excellent food, good wine, and a live band. Nothing outrageous by today's standards, just a beautiful celebration of our love. When I shared our initial plans during a family dinner, my mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't you think that's a bit much?" she asked, pushing her food around her plate. Rachel's wedding was so tasteful and economical. She understood that marriage is about the commitment, not the party. "This is the wedding we want, Mom," I said firmly. "The vineyard is beautiful, and we're excited about it." "But the expense," my father chimed in. "In this economy, it seems irresponsible to spend so much on a single day." "Andrew and I are paying for most of it ourselves," I explained. We've both saved, and his parents generously offered to help. Oh, so his parents are showing off their money, my mother said with a disapproving sniff. I suppose that makes sense given their background. Andrew, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. Mrs. Carter, my parents simply want to help us have a special day. There's no showing off involved. My father changed the subject, but the tension remained. As we drove home that night, Andrew reached for my hand. Jessica, this is our wedding. We should have what makes us happy, not what makes your parents comfortable. I squeezed his hand, grateful for his support. But this was just the beginning of the battle. The next week, my mother called to tell me she'd been researching more sensible venues and had found a nice community center that would be perfectly adequate for a reception. Mom, we've already put a deposit on the vineyard, I told her. Well, that was hasty, she replied. You should have consulted us first. We have experience with these things. This led to our first major argument about the wedding. My mother accused me of being materialistic and missing the point of marriage, while I defended our right to celebrate our way. The situation escalated when I discovered that Rachel had been secretly showing my mother venues behind my back. My cousin Emma mentioned it casually, not realizing I had no idea. Rachel showed your mom some great photos of the Riverside Community Center yesterday, Emma said during a phone call. The garden there would be pretty for a ceremony, though not as nice as that vineyard you chose. I confronted Rachel via text, and her response was infuriating in its false innocence. Mom asked me for ideas since I planned such a successful wedding. I was just trying to help. Not everyone has the luxury of spending a fortune on one day. Some of us understand financial responsibility. Then came the first major betrayal from my sister regarding the wedding. We had settled on a date in June, which worked perfectly with the vineyard's availability and would give us ideal weather. 2 weeks after we confirmed the date, my mother called to inform me that they had planned a family vacation to Florida, leaving the day before our wedding and returning a week later. You'll have to reschedule, she said matter-of-factly. The condo is already booked, non-refundable. The whole family is going. When I expressed my disbelief, she added, Rachel helped plan it. She found such a good deal we couldn't pass up. Later, I learned from Emma that Rachel had specifically suggested those dates after hearing about our wedding plans. Despite my anger, I rescheduled our wedding for later in the summer, unwilling to have a wedding without my family present. I didn't yet understand that their absence might actually be a blessing. After rescheduling our wedding to accommodate my family's accidentally conflicting vacation, I hoped things would improve. Instead, the criticism only intensified. Every decision became a battlefield. $800 centerpieces? My mother gasped during a planning lunch, though I'd never mentioned any such figure. Rachel made her own centerpieces from her garden. They were charming and cost nothing. Mom, I never said anything about $800 centerpieces, I corrected her. We're spending about $50 each on simple floral arrangements. She waved her hand dismissively. Well, that still adds up to thousands when you're having so many tables. My father's contribution was equally unhelpful. When I brought up the traditional father's contribution to wedding costs, he cleared his throat uncomfortably. Jessica, you know times are different now. You and Andrew both have good jobs. Your mother and I are thinking about retirement. We can't just throw money around. Despite this apparent financial hardship, they had just returned from a 2-week European river cruise and were planning another for the following year. The double standard was becoming impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Rachel had appointed herself as my unsolicited wedding consultant, constantly sending links to budget wedding ideas with messages like, "This DIY arch would be so much more meaningful than some overpriced florist creation," or, "Look at these paper flowers. No one would know the difference and you'd save thousands." My patience was wearing thin, but I tried to maintain peace. Then I discovered something that changed everything. During a weekend visit to my parents' house, I was looking for a flashlight in their office when I came across a folder labeled Rachel's Wedding. Inside were receipts and contracts showing that my parents had contributed over $30,000 to my sister's modest wedding, including $5,000 for her custom-altered grandmother's dress, which turned out to be mostly new material with just lace trim from our grandmother's original gown, $7,000 for catering, and $4,000 for photography. I confronted them that evening, receipts in hand. "You spent $30,000 on Rachel's wedding, but act like I'm being extravagant for wanting nice centerpieces that cost a fraction of that?" My father snatched the folder from my hands. "You had no right to go through our private documents." "That's not the point," I insisted. "The point is the hypocrisy. You've been making me feel guilty about every penny spent on my wedding while you lavished money on Rachel's." "Rachel's wedding was sensible," my mother retorted. "Every penny was well spent because she made responsible choices. She didn't try to outdo everyone with some wine country extravaganza." The argument ended with me in tears, and my parents refusing to acknowledge the double standard. On the drive back to my apartment, Andrew suggested something that initially shocked me. "My parents have offered to cover the costs your parents would traditionally handle," he said gently. "They want us to have the wedding we want." At first, I resisted, not wanting to seem like I was taking advantage of his family's generosity. But as the weeks passed and my parents' resistance continued, I gradually accepted that this might be the only way to have the wedding we truly wanted. Rachel, meanwhile, had begun spreading her version of events to extended family. My aunt called one day, her voice careful. "Jessica, honey, I'm hearing that you're planning quite an elaborate wedding. You know, there's beauty in simplicity. Rachel's wedding was so lovely and unpretentious." One by one, family members began questioning my choices, all using suspiciously similar language. It became clear Rachel had been busy. The final straw came when I was browsing Pinterest for hairstyle ideas and noticed a board titled "Jessica's Ridiculous Wedding" in Rachel's profile. It was public, visible to anyone, and filled with screenshots of luxury weddings with sarcastic captions like, "Nothing but the best for Princess Jessica, and hope Andrew's parents have deep pockets." When I confronted her by phone, her response was chilling in its calculation. "It was just a joke between me and a couple friends," she said. "I didn't realize it was public, but honestly, Jessica, you are going overboard. Everyone's talking about how materialistic you've become. I'm just concerned as your sister." "Concerned enough to humiliate me publicly?" I asked. "Don't be so dramatic," she sighed. "This is exactly what I mean. Everything has to be a big production with you." I hung up and blocked her number, something I should have done months earlier. The damage to my family relationships was becoming irreparable, but for the first time, I wasn't sure that was entirely a bad thing. 6 months before our wedding, my parents insisted on a family dinner to discuss the wedding situation. I agreed, hoping we might finally find some resolution. Andrew came with me for moral support, though my parents had implied they wanted a family-only meeting. The evening started with strained small talk about Rachel's recent promotion and her husband James's new research grant. My own recent promotion to creative director barely warranted a nod. As my mother served dessert, my father cleared his throat, always a warning sign that he was about to say something unpleasant. "Jessica, your mother and I have discussed this at length, and we've come to a decision," he announced, folding his hands on the table. "We cannot, in good conscience, attend or support a wedding that has become an excessive display of, well, showing off." The bluntness of his statement left me speechless momentarily. My mother jumped in to fill the silence. "Rachel's wedding was perfect because she respected family traditions and understood what marriage is truly about," she said, reaching for Rachel's hand. "Simple, meaningful, focused on commitment rather than spectacle." Rachel nodded solemnly, the perfect daughter in complete agreement with the family position. "So you're saying you won't come to my wedding unless I change it to be more like Rachel's?" I finally managed to ask, my voice shaking. "We're saying we raised you better than this," my father replied. "This vineyard extravaganza isn't you, Jessica. It's some materialistic version of you that's developed since you started making good money and dating Andrew." Andrew, who had been respectfully quiet, finally spoke up. With all due respect, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Jessica and I have created a wedding that represents us and our values. There's nothing excessive about wanting a beautiful setting and good food to celebrate with the people we love. My mother's expression hardened. Well, that's your prerogative. But we have values too, and we can't support this display. I left the dinner in tears, the severity of their ultimatum sinking in. In the car, Andrew held me while I cried, assuring me that whatever I decided, he would support me. Later that night, I received a call from my cousin Emma, who had always been more like a friend than a relative. Her information was devastating. "Jessica, I need to tell you something," she said hesitantly. "Rachel has been working against you behind the scenes. She's been showing your parents screenshots of similar vineyard weddings, but adding in luxury elements you never planned to have. She showed them some $500 per plate catering menu and claimed that's what you were ordering. She's been inflating all your costs when talking to them." "Why would she do that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Rachel couldn't stand the thought of my wedding outshining hers, even in perception. "She's always needed to be the perfect one," Emma said gently. "Your success threatens that image." The next morning, I tried to speak with my father alone, hoping he might be more reasonable without my mother and Rachel's influence. I called him at his office during lunch. "Dad, can we talk about this rationally? The wedding Andrew and I are planning isn't nearly as extravagant as you've been led to believe." "Your mother and I are united on this, Jessica," he replied stiffly. "If you want to discuss it, we need to do it together with her present." My attempt to speak with my mother individually was equally unsuccessful. She insisted I was being selfish and showing off, refusing to consider that she might have been manipulated by Rachel. The final piece clicked into place when I learned through social media that my parents had not only attended my wealthy cousin Megan's lavish wedding at the Plaza Hotel in New York the previous year, but had apparently praised it effusively. According to comments on the photos, my mother had called it a perfectly appropriate celebration and worth every penny. That night, as Andrew and I processed everything, he made a suggestion. "We could elope," he said, stroking my hair as I leaned against him on our couch. "Just the two of us, somewhere beautiful. No drama, no family politics." The idea was tempting a way to escape the constant criticism and manipulation. But something in me refused to be pushed out of the wedding we'd planned and loved. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not letting them take this from us. We're having our wedding exactly as we planned it. If they choose not to come, that's their loss." Andrew smiled and kissed my forehead. "That's my brave girl. Whatever you decide, I'm with you all the way." That night, I realized the truth that had been staring me in the face all along. This wasn't about money or ostentation. It was about keeping me in my place, the lesser daughter, the one who should never outshine Rachel. For the first time, I was refusing to accept that role, and they couldn't handle it. 3 months before our wedding, preparations moved into high gear. Final vendor contracts were signed, deposits paid, and timelines confirmed. While most brides have their mothers or sisters helping with these details, I had formed a different kind of support system. My work friend Amber stepped up in ways I hadn't expected, coming with me to final dress fittings and helping address invitations. Andrew's mother, Catherine, took on traditional mother of the bride tasks without ever making me feel like a charity case. "I always wanted a daughter," she told me during a wedding planning lunch. "Getting to help you with these details is a gift for me too." Despite the ongoing tension, I sent formal invitations to my parents, Rachel, and other family members. I refused to be the one to close the door, even as they seemed determined to slam it shut. About 10 weeks before the wedding, Rachel reached out unexpectedly, suggesting we meet for coffee to clear the air. After some hesitation, I agreed, hoping against hope that she might be genuinely trying to reconcile. We met at a cafe halfway between our apartments. Rachel arrived looking perfectly put together as always, her expression one of practiced concern. "Jessica, I feel terrible about how things have escalated," she began, stirring her latte. "I never meant for Mom and Dad to threaten not to attend your wedding. I just worry you're getting caught up in something that's not really you." Though skeptical, I was desperate enough for family support that I found myself softening slightly. "I appreciate you saying that, Rachel. This wedding is important to me and Andrew. We've put a lot of thought into making it meaningful." Rachel nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Look, maybe I can help smooth things over with Mom and Dad. They might listen to me if I tell them I've seen your perspective." Against my better judgment, I agreed to let Rachel help. She asked for details about the wedding timeline and vendor information, so I can correct any misconceptions Mom and Dad might have. A week later, I received a confused email from our florist, asking me to confirm the recent changes to our order. Apparently, someone claiming to be me had called to downgrade our arrangements from garden roses and peonies to carnations and baby's breath, citing budget concerns. Similar messages followed from our caterer, switching the menu from the seasonal farm to table selections to a basic chicken divided by fish option, our band canceling in favor of a DJ, and even our photographer reducing coverage from full day to ceremony only. Fortunately, all our vendors had verification policies requiring email confirmation for major changes. None of the downgrades had been processed, but the attempt was clear. I called the florist directly, who confirmed the request had come from someone claiming to be Jessica Carter but from a different phone number than the one on file. With growing suspicion, I asked her to check that number. "Oh, sure. It's right here in my notes," she said. The callback number was for Rachel Carter. The betrayal was so brazen, so calculated that I actually felt physically ill. Rachel had systematically attempted to dismantle every special element of our wedding while pretending to help reconcile the family. I confronted her that evening, showing up unannounced at her apartment. When she opened the door, her expression of surprise quickly shifted to defensiveness when she saw my face. "How could you?" I demanded, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You called our vendors pretending to be me? To downgrade everything?" "I was just trying to help," she insisted, crossing her arms. "You're spending money you don't need to spend. The vendors are overcharging you for things guests won't even notice." "That wasn't your decision to make," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "This is my wedding, not yours. You had your turn." "And I did it responsibly," she shot back. "Everyone talks about how tasteful and appropriate my wedding was. What do you think they'll say about your wine country extravaganza?" In that moment, I saw my sister clearly for perhaps the first time in my life. Her perfectly curated image wasn't just about pleasing our parents, it was about ensuring she remained the golden child, the standard against which I would always be found wanting. "I don't care what everyone says," I told her calmly. "The only opinions that matter are mine and Andrew's, and we're having exactly the wedding we want." "Mom and Dad won't come," she warned, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "They've made that very clear." "That's their choice," I replied. "But let me make something clear too. I'm done with your manipulation. Don't call me, don't text me, and stay the hell away from my wedding planning." I walked out, blocked her number on my phone, and emailed all our vendors to add passwords to our accounts and specify that changes could only be made in person or via video call with ID verification. The fallout was immediate and intense. My parents called repeatedly, leaving voicemails defending Rachel's actions as well-intentioned and accusing me of being dramatic and ungrateful for her help. "Rachel was only trying to save you from yourself," my mother insisted in one particularly galling message. "She knows how these things work. She's been through it." I finally sent them a firm email. "I love you both, but I need you to respect my boundaries. This is my wedding. You have two choices. Accept it as it is and attend, or don't. But I will not change it to meet your or Rachel's expectations." Their response was to enlist extended family members to pressure me. Aunts called with concerns, uncles emailed with unsolicited financial advice, and cousins sent messages about family unity. Some took my side after hearing the full story, but many accepted the narrative Rachel and my parents had crafted. Jessica has become materialistic and is throwing an inappropriately lavish wedding to show off. The stress began to affect my health. I developed insomnia, lost weight, and found myself fighting back tears at random moments during the day. Andrew, seeing my distress, suggested we meet with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. This isn't normal family disagreement, he pointed out gently. What they're doing is emotional abuse, and you need support to process it. Dr. Levine, the therapist we found, helped me understand that the wedding had become a flashpoint for issues that had always existed in my family dynamics. Your wedding represents your emergence from the role they assigned you, she explained during one session. By refusing to make it smaller than your sister's, you're refusing to be smaller than your sister. That threatens the family system they've built. With therapy, supportive friends, and Andrew's unwavering love, I began to find my footing again. The wedding preparations continued, and each decision made without my family's input or approval felt increasingly liberating. 1 month before the wedding, I had my final dress fitting. Despite everything, I felt a surge of joy seeing myself in the fitted lace gown we had chosen. Amber and Andrew's mother, Catherine, were with me, both tearing up as I stepped onto the platform. "You look absolutely beautiful, Jessica," Catherine said, adjusting the train. Andrew is going to be speechless. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to fully enjoy this milestone, pushing thoughts of my family's absence to the back of my mind. But as we celebrated with champagne afterward, a text from Emma shattered the moment. "You should know Rachel called an emergency family meeting last weekend," she wrote. "She told everyone you've turned into a complete bridezilla and are being cruel to her and your parents." She showed edited screenshots of texts between you two. Most people believed her, but a few of us questioned it. The manipulation had reached new levels. According to Emma, Rachel had painted me as materialistic, unstable, and verbally abusive to my family. She'd told relatives I had forbidden my parents from attending unless they apologized for not financing the extravagant wedding I demanded. The complete inversion of reality was staggering. I had never asked my parents for money, had rescheduled the wedding to accommodate them, and had kept the door open for them to attend, despite their criticism. That evening, I recorded a heartfelt video message for my parents, explaining my feelings clearly and calmly. "Mom, Dad, I love you both," I said, looking directly into the camera. "All I've ever wanted is your support and approval. This wedding represents Andrew and me, our taste, our values, our love. It's not a rejection of family traditions or a competition with Rachel's wedding. It's simply us celebrating our commitment in a way that feels authentic to who we are. All I want is for you to be there on my day, to walk me down the aisle, Dad, and to help me get ready, Mom. Please don't miss this moment. We can't get it back." Their response came the next morning, a terse email from my father's account. "Jessica, we raised you better than this. Your sister had the right idea about what a wedding should be. We're disappointed you've chosen this path and can't support it. We hope you'll reconsider before it's too late." Not a word acknowledging my feelings or the pain they were causing, just more criticism and comparison to Rachel. Then, 1 week before the wedding, the final blow fell. My cousin Jake, who was graduating from college, posted on social media about his upcoming ceremony, scheduled for the same day as our wedding. "So excited, Mom and Dad are coming from Arizona. Aunt Diana and Uncle Michael are driving down from Connecticut, too. Family support means everything." I stared at the post in disbelief, then at the proud comment from my mother below it. "We wouldn't miss it for anything. So proud of our nephew." They had found the perfect excuse. Not only were they skipping my wedding, but they had an alternative family obligation that would make them appear devoted rather than punitive. And the timing was suspicious, to say the least. I called Jake directly, curious about when he had scheduled his graduation attendance. "Oh, Aunt Rachel helped me figure it all out," he said innocently. "She mentioned you had your wedding the same weekend, which was a bummer, but she said you'd understand since you were doing your own thing anyway." The puzzle pieces clicked into place. Rachel had deliberately helped coordinate this scheduling conflict, creating a perfect out for my parents while making it seem like I was the one who had abandoned family obligations. I broke down completely that night, questioning whether to proceed with the wedding at all. The emotional toll of these calculated betrayals had left me exhausted and heartbroken. "Maybe we should just elope," I sobbed to Andrew. "This is supposed to be the happiest time of our lives, and instead, it's turning into a nightmare." Andrew held me close, letting me cry it out before responding. "Jessica, listen to me," he said finally, gently lifting my chin. "These people have been diminishing you your entire life. If we cancel or change our wedding now, they win again. Is that really what you want?" My friends rallied around me with unprecedented support. Lisa took time off work to help with last-minute details. Amber organized a special pre-wedding dinner to replace the traditional rehearsal dinner my parents would have hosted. Andrew's parents stepped up their already generous support, his father offering a heartfelt toast at that dinner that left everyone in tears. "To Jessica," he said, raising his glass, "the daughter we didn't know we needed until Andrew brought you into our lives. Your strength, creativity, and heart have made our son happier than we've ever seen him. Your family of origin may not see your worth, but your chosen family, all of us here, we see you clearly, and we're the lucky ones." With renewed determination, I wrote one final letter to my parents, leaving it on their doorstep since they had begun ignoring my calls and texts. "Mom and Dad," I wrote, "our wedding is next Saturday. Despite everything, there will be seats for you in the front row if you choose to come. I love you and wish you could be happy for me. This door remains open, but I will be walking through it, with or without you." 2 days before the wedding, I received their final text. "We can't support this display of selfishness. Jacob's graduation deserves our attention." Minutes later, Rachel's voicemail arrived. "Maybe this will teach you about family priorities. Not everything is about you, Jessica." I deleted both messages, put away my phone, and focused on the people who had chosen to stand by us. The wedding would go on, and for the first time in my life, I would be celebrating a major milestone without seeking my family's approval. I woke up on my wedding day to sunlight streaming through the curtains of the vineyard's bridal cottage. For a moment, before full consciousness arrived, I felt pure excitement. Then reality crashed back. My parents wouldn't be there, nor my sister, nor many extended family members who had sided with them. A gentle knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. Lisa entered with a breakfast tray and an envelope. "Special delivery from your soon-to-be husband," she announced, setting the tray beside me. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note from Andrew. "My amazing Jessica, today I get to marry the strongest, most beautiful person I know. Whatever happens today, remember that you are loved beyond measure, not for being perfect, but for being perfectly you. I can't wait to see you walk toward me. All my love, forever, Andrew." Tears pricked my eyes, but they were different from the ones I'd shed so often in recent months. These were tears of gratitude, of being truly seen and valued. The morning preparations began with my bridesmaids arriving, popping champagne, and filling the cottage with laughter and music. Lisa stepped seamlessly into the role my mother should have played, helping me with my jewelry and the something borrowed pearl earrings she'd brought for me. Amber, usually so tough and practical, grew teary as she helped arrange my veil. "You look absolutely stunning," she said. "Andrew is going to lose his mind when he sees you." Catherine, Andrew's mother, joined us midway through preparations. She didn't try to replace my mother, she was too sensitive for that, but her warm presence and genuine excitement provided a balm for the parental absence. As my makeup artist put the finishing touches on my look, I asked everyone for a moment alone. In the quiet, I took out a small photo of my family from my childhood, one rare moment when we all looked happy together at the beach. I allowed myself 1 minute to feel the grief, to acknowledge what should have been, before tucking the photo away again. "This is still my day," I whispered to my reflection. "Their absence is their choice and their loss." The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock. At 3, Andrew's father Robert knocked gently on the cottage door. "Jessica, you look radiant," he said, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. Andrew asked me to check if you'd like me to walk you down the aisle. No pressure at all, it's completely your choice. I'd been wrestling with this decision for weeks. Having Robert step in would be meaningful, but something in me resisted the symbolism of being given away by someone else when my own father had chosen not to be there. Thank you, Robert, I said, squeezing his hand. That means the world to me. But I think I need to walk this path alone. I've been standing on my own for years, really. Today should reflect that. He nodded, understanding without offense. You'll never be truly alone again, Jessica. You're family now. The ceremony site took my breath away. Rows of white chairs on the vineyard lawn, facing an arch covered in garden roses and greenery, with the rolling hills and grapevines creating a perfect backdrop. As I peeked out from the cottage, I could see the seats filling with friends and colleagues. With a pang, I noticed the empty front row seats reserved for my parents. But beside them sat a surprising sight: my cousins, Emma and Tyler, along with my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. They had chosen to come, despite the family pressure not to. The music began, not the traditional wedding march, but the song Andrew and I had chosen together, Stand By Me. My bridesmaids proceeded one by one, and then it was my turn. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the petal-strewn aisle alone. At first, I felt the absence beside me acutely, the space where my father should have been. But as I began walking and saw the faces of people who had chosen to be there, friends who had supported me, colleagues who respected me, Andrew's family who had embraced me, something shifted. By the time I reached the halfway point, my focus had narrowed to Andrew's face at the end of the aisle. The love and pride I saw there washed away everything else. In that moment, I wasn't missing anything. I was exactly where I needed to be, walking toward my future. Our vows were personal and heartfelt. Mine included a line that brought knowing tears to the eyes of those who understood our journey. Andrew, I choose you as my family. In you, I have found the unconditional love and acceptance I've sought my whole life. Andrew's parents gave a beautiful welcome speech at the reception, with his father addressing the room warmly. Today, our family doesn't just gain a daughter-in-law, Robert said, his arm around Catherine. We gain a daughter, period. Jessica, your creativity, resilience, and huge heart have made our son happier than we've ever seen him. We're the lucky ones today. The surprise of the evening came when Emma approached me during the cocktail hour. There's something you should know, she said, pulling me aside. More family members wanted to come than you think. Rachel and your parents have been working overtime to control the narrative, but people are seeing through it. Several cousins and aunts told me they regret not coming after seeing photos Tyler posted of the ceremony. Despite this comfort, there were moments when the absence of my family hit hard. Seeing the empty table that would have seated my parents and sister, the modified father-daughter dance, where Andrew's grandfather Howard stepped in, bringing tears to everyone's eyes as he carefully waltzed me around the floor to What a Wonderful World. But there were also moments of perfect joy that would have been impossible with my family's critical presence, dancing wildly with my friends, without worrying about my mother's disapproving looks, giving a heartfelt, slightly tipsy speech, thanking everyone who had supported us without my father checking his watch impatiently. Andrew's speech brought the room to emotional silence as he concluded. To my wife, Jessica, your strength amazes me daily. You've shown me what it means to create your own path when the expected one doesn't fit. I am the proudest man in the world today, and I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes next. Our first dance as husband and wife was to At Last by Etta James, a choice that felt especially poignant. At last, I had found where I belonged. At last, I was free from the need for approval that had shaped so much of my life. As Andrew held me close, spinning slowly under the market lights, he whispered in my ear, "Was it everything you hoped for?" Despite the empty seats, despite the family drama, despite everything, I could answer honestly, "It's more, because it's real. It's us." Later that night, as friends and family danced under the stars, I found a quiet moment to look out over the vineyard. The grief and hurt weren't gone. they might never be completely gone. But alongside them was a new feeling of liberation. For the first time in my life, I had refused to make myself smaller, to make others comfortable. I had stood firm in my worth and my choices. Whatever came next, I would face it with Andrew by my side, supported by people who loved us for exactly who we were. And that was something worth celebrating. Andrew and I returned from our 2-week honeymoon in Greece to discover a social media storm brewing among family and friends. Someone, later revealed to be my cousin Emma, had posted a stunning photo album of our wedding online, tagging numerous family members who hadn't attended. The pictures told a story that contradicted the narrative my parents and Rachel had been spinning. Rather than the gaudy, excessive spectacle they had described, the images showed an elegant, joyful celebration filled with personal touches and genuine emotion. Comments flooded in from extended family. "This looks absolutely beautiful. So sad we missed it. Jessica, you were a stunning bride. Congratulations to you both. What a perfect venue. Who helped you plan such a gorgeous event?" Rachel tried desperately to control the damage, commenting things like, "Yes, it turned out nice." Shame about the family tensions that led to the divided attendance, attempting to maintain the fiction that I had somehow forced my parents away. But Emma, bless her, replied publicly. The only tension came from certain people trying to control Jessica's wedding. Those who chose not to attend missed a beautiful, love-filled day. Within days, my phone began filling with messages from relatives who had boycotted the wedding. My Aunt Elizabeth wrote, "The pictures are lovely, Jessica." I regret believing what I was told about the situation. My cousin Mark called, apologizing awkwardly for his absence, and admitting he'd been given a very different impression of what had happened. I responded graciously but honestly to each message. "Thank you for your kind words. The day was beautiful, though it would have been more complete with family present. I hope we can move forward with better understanding." I maintained my professional composure when asked about my parents' absence, never sharing the full story of their manipulation and betrayal, simply saying, "Unfortunately, they had a scheduling conflict they couldn't resolve." The high road felt lonely sometimes, but it preserved my dignity. Meanwhile, my career continued to flourish. A month after our return, our wedding was featured in a regional design magazine, highlighting unique celebrations. The spread included an interview where I discussed our vision and the personal touches we'd incorporated, with no mention of family drama. I sent copies to everyone who had attended as a thank you gift. Andrew received an exciting promotion around the same time, one that would require relocation to Chicago. After discussing it thoroughly, we decided to accept. The move would be good for both our careers, and honestly, the distance from my family dynamics in Connecticut could only be healthy. I didn't explicitly inform my parents about our impending move. I updated friends and supportive family members, changed my address with relevant institutions, and arranged for our apartment to be sublet. 2 weeks after we'd settled into our new Chicago home, I received a frantic voicemail from Rachel. "Jessica, what the hell? I just went by your apartment to drop off some old family photos Mom wanted you to have, and someone else is living there. Where are you? Why didn't you tell anyone you were moving? This is so irresponsible." I texted back simply, "Andrew and I moved to Chicago for work opportunities. We're doing well, thanks for asking." Her response was immediate and revealing. "You can't just disappear like that. Mom and Dad are worried sick. You've always been selfish, but this is a new low." I waited a day before responding. "I'm not disappearing. I'm living my life. I've been very clear about my boundaries. If Mom and Dad are concerned, they have my number." Sure enough, my parents called the next day. My father spoke first, his voice that familiar mix of disapproval and concern that had shaped so much of my childhood. "Jessica, this moving without telling us is exactly the kind of impulsive behavior we've always worried about with you." "It wasn't impulsive," I responded calmly. "It was a carefully considered career opportunity for both Andrew and me. We've been planning it for months." "Well, you should have told us," my mother chimed in. "We're your parents. We have a right to know where you're living. You've made it very clear where I stand in your priorities, I said, surprised at how steady my voice remained. You chose to miss my wedding. You've consistently supported Rachel's manipulation and lies. I'm setting boundaries for my own well-being. So this is punishment for missing your wedding? My father asked incredulously. No, Dad. This is me protecting myself from further hurt. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply no longer expecting you to treat me with the same consideration you show Rachel. The conversation ended with no real resolution, but I felt lighter afterward. For the first time, I had stated my position without anger or tears, without seeking their approval or understanding. It was simply my truth, whether they accepted it or not. In the months that followed, Rachel's perfect facade began showing cracks. Without me as the family scapegoat, minor tensions that had always existed between her and our parents began to surface. Extended family members, now aware of her role in the wedding drama, became more skeptical of her carefully curated image. At Thanksgiving, which Andrew and I spent with his family in Boston, I learned from Emma that Rachel had hosted the family gathering, but it had ended early after an argument erupted when my mother criticized Rachel's stuffing recipe. Apparently, without me to focus on as the problem child, my parents' critical nature had found a new target. I took no pleasure in hearing about their difficulties, perhaps a tiny bit of satisfaction, but mostly I felt a profound sense of freedom. Their drama was no longer my responsibility or concern. The sweetest form of revenge wasn't anything I actively did to my family. It was simply living well without their validation or approval, building a marriage based on mutual respect and support, creating a home that welcomed friends and chosen family, advancing in a career I loved, finding happiness that didn't depend on their recognition. When people ask if I miss my family, I answer truthfully. I miss what we could have been. I miss the relationship I always hoped for. But I don't miss the constant criticism, the comparisons, the need to make myself smaller to accommodate their expectations. That freedom is worth the loss. 1 year after our wedding, Andrew and I settled into our new home in Chicago, a charming 3-bedroom house in a tree-lined neighborhood. The extra bedrooms were ostensibly for a home office and guests, but we both knew we were making space for the family we hoped to create. Weekly therapy sessions had become an essential part of my healing process. Dr. Kaplan, my therapist in Chicago, specialized in family trauma and had helped me understand the deep roots of my family dynamics. Your parents created a family system with very rigid roles, she explained during one session. Rachel was the golden child who could do no wrong, and you were assigned the role of the problem child who could never quite measure up. When you refused to accept that role by creating a wedding that might outshine Rachel's, the system went into crisis mode. Understanding the pattern didn't erase the pain, but it helped me stop blaming myself for my family's reactions. I hadn't done anything wrong by wanting a beautiful wedding or by standing firm against manipulation. I maintained limited, carefully managed contact with my parents' birthday calls, occasional updates about work achievements, polite responses to their messages. Rachel, I kept at a greater distance, engaging only when absolutely necessary for family matters. Have you forgiven them? Dr. Kaplan asked during a session near the anniversary of our wedding. I'm working on it, I answered honestly. Not for their sake, but for mine. The anger takes so much energy that I'd rather invest elsewhere. My parents continued their pattern of favoritism, though with me at a distance, Rachel bore the brunt of their critical tendencies more directly. Through Emma and other family members who had maintained connections with me, I heard about small fractures appearing in Rachel's perfect life. Her husband James had apparently grown tired of the constant performance for my parents' approval. Rachel's attempts to maintain her image as the perfect daughter, wife, and professional had begun taking a toll on their marriage. James didn't sign up to live his entire life under a microscope, Emma reported after a tense family dinner. He actually said that to your mom's face when she criticized their decision to postpone having children. I felt an unexpected surge of sympathy for my sister. She had won our parents' approval, but at what cost? The constant pressure to maintain perfection was its own kind of prison. Around our first anniversary, I received a letter from my father, not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter. The formality of it signaled its importance. "Jessica," it began, "the past year has given me time to reflect on what happened with your wedding and our relationship. While I still believe your mother and I had valid concerns about the expense and display, I regret how we handled the situation. Missing your wedding is a decision I will have to live with for the rest of my life." It wasn't a full acknowledgement of the manipulation and favoritism, but it was the first crack in the wall of denial. The letter continued with updates about his health, their house, and neutral family news. The final paragraph caught me by surprise. "Your mother may not be ready to say this yet, but I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. Your promotion, your new home, the recognition you've received for your work, these are significant achievements. You've always done things your own way, and while that hasn't always been easy for us to understand, I can see now that it has served you well." I showed the letter to Andrew and Dr. Kaplan, unsure how to respond. Both advised caution. One letter didn't erase years of painful dynamics, but it could be a small step toward a healthier relationship if I wanted that. My mother, as my father had indicated, wasn't ready for such acknowledgments. Her messages remained focused on surface pleasantries or thinly veiled criticisms. "I saw your company's new advertising campaign online. Very colorful. Not what I would choose, but I'm sure it appeals to young people." Rachel, interestingly, had begun showing signs of her own crisis. According to Emma, her perfect marriage was showing serious strains. The constant pressure to maintain appearances for our parents while building her medical career and planning the perfect family had created unsustainable stress. James moved out temporarily last month, Emma told me during one of our regular calls. "Rachel's been telling everyone he's on a medical research trip, but he's actually staying with his brother while they figure things out." I felt no satisfaction in hearing this, only sadness for the damage our family system had caused to all of us. Then came unexpected news that shifted my perspective entirely. I was pregnant. The timing wasn't planned. We had hoped to wait another year, but as Andrew and I stared at the positive test, joy overcame any concerns about timing. Pregnancy brought a flood of complex emotions about family. As I connected with the new life growing inside me, I found myself thinking deeply about what kind of parent I wanted to be, what patterns I was determined to break. "I will never compare you to anyone else," I whispered to my growing belly at night. "You'll be loved for exactly who you are, not for how well you meet my expectations." The question of how much to involve my parents in their grandchild's life became increasingly urgent. After much discussion with Andrew and Dr. Kaplan, I decided to share the news, but with clear boundaries established from the beginning. "We're expecting a baby in July," I wrote in an email to my parents. "We're excited to welcome you into our child's life, as grandparents who support and respect our parenting choices. This means accepting that Andrew and I will make decisions that may differ from your preferences, and trusting that we have our child's best interests at heart." My father responded warmly. My mother's response was predictably mixed excitement about a grandchild tempered with suggestions about proper prenatal care, with pointed references to how Rachel would likely handle pregnancy when her time came. As my due date approached, we prepared the nursery, attended childbirth classes, and strengthened the connections with our chosen family. Andrew's parents, our close friends, supportive colleagues who had become like family to us in Chicago. Catherine and Robert visited frequently, bringing thoughtfully chosen gifts and offering help without imposing. Andrew's mother shared wisdom about motherhood without ever suggesting there was only one right way to do things. "The best advice I can give you," she told me as we set up the crib together, "is to trust yourself. You'll make mistakes, we all do, but you'll learn and grow from them. That's the joy of parenthood." In those moments, I felt the healing power of healthy family relationships. The contrast with my own upbringing couldn't have been starker, and it reinforced my commitment to breaking the cycle with my own child. During a therapy session in my third trimester, Dr. Kaplan asked me to reflect on what I had learned from the wedding experience and its aftermath. I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, I said after some thought. For years, I tried to make myself acceptable to my parents by diminishing my own needs and desires. All that did was teach them that my boundaries weren't real. And now, she prompted, now I understand that healthy relationships require mutual respect. I can love my parents without allowing them to diminish me. I can hope for their growth while protecting myself from their harmful patterns. And most importantly, I can create a new kind of family with Andrew and our baby one built on acceptance rather than conditional approval. As I approach motherhood, I look at the wedding photo displayed in our living room. Andrew and I dancing under string lights, surrounded by people who chose to be there. And I feel an unexpected peace. The empty seats at our wedding will always be part of our story, but they no longer define it. The truth I've come to embrace is that sometimes the family you create is the family you needed all along. The parents who couldn't attend my wedding missed more than just one day. They missed the opportunity to know and love the person I've become. That's their loss, not mine. And to my baby, already so loved, you will never have to earn your place in this family. You belong, exactly as you are, from your very first breath. That is my promise and your birthright. What about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, even when it was painful? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is create the family we need, whether through blood or through choice. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I wish you strength in yours.